All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel again. Thank you all so much for coming over. This is going to be part two of the video where it was being discussed about the lady getting thrown out of the courtroom. Now they're going to talk about the hotel security guy who, um, you know, was paid money for the tape. That's what we're about to get into now. I just had to make a different intro because the video I'll watch is they went into this. So we ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
That this incident occurred. He was just 24 years old. He was working for Securitas, who we kind of know a little bit about from Officer Israel Flores' testimony, who was one of the first witnesses called by the government to testify essentially against Sean Combs, aka Diddy. So we were learning just about who the director of security was, and that was a man named Bill Medrano. The assistant director of security was Officer Israel Flores. And so Eddie Garcia was talking about how he's still friends with Israel Flores, saw him a couple weeks ago, but they didn't talk about the substance of their testimony. But Garcia said he saw a TikTok about his testimony, so I thought that part was interesting. So we see an exhibit photo of the employee sign-in sheet, where you see on the day of this incident that we see Eddie had worked from 2 p.m. till 1:30 in the morning. And so we saw some extra overtime because he normally gets off at 10 p.m. But instead on that day, he got off at 1:30 in the morning. And so he was saying after this incident occurred that we know from Officer Israel Flores' testimony that Diddy was kind of trying to buy his way out of this, trying to say like, hey, I got some money, can you make this go away? But then from Eddie Garcia's perspective, he said he got a phone call from somebody, and it wasn't necessarily Diddy at first, but we heard from him today that Christina Quorum had called him, and he said he was even kind of nervous and a little apprehensive about how Christina Quorum got not only his work number but his personal cell phone number too. And so then there was kind of
that lady, that Christina Quorum, I know a lot of people are wondering if she's going to testify, because they saying this is, I believe that's her, right? Because you had CC, which is Capricorn Clark, then KK, which is Christina Quorum, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe this is a lady who they were saying is like Diddy's right-hand woman. So the fact that her name was brought up there, boy, 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 boy. Are we finally making that turn, that shift?
a sidebar, and the sidebar was pretty lengthy because right before the sidebar had happened, Christina Quorum said something along the lines to Eddie Garcia that Diddy was intoxicated that night and didn't remember what was going on. But they were pretty much trying to obtain the one and only version of that security tape. They wanted to buy it off of the hotel, and initially they were going to purchase it for about $50,000. However, Diddy gave them double that of money. He gave them $100,000, and that money was divvied up pretty much. It was divvied up $50,000 to the director, or it was divvied up $50,000 to Bill, who was the director of security. Henry Elias, who also works at the hotel, was given $20,000. Eddie Garcia kept $30,000 to himself and actually used the money to buy a used car. Then we kind of slowly got into what Eddie had to do in return for this money, and that was to sign an NDA. We saw kind of a copy of this NDA inside the courtroom, where it was pretty much saying that you're not to discuss this. You're signing away that you are giving away the one and only copy. And as far as Eddie Garcia is concerned, he said the next time he saw that this video, because he thought that he had turned over the one and only copy through a thumb drive to Diddy, he thought that was done. He thought that this incident was over. He was going about his business until he saw the video once again playing on CNN. And it's a
Think about those names she named. These people knew this tape exists. They took the money and kept quiet. And look at where they are today. It came back. Now that you have the names of the people, I'm just saying, like, that's horrible, man. Because if you look at what happened way back then, and then what's allegedly happened since then. They could have stopped it. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, she would have had to press charges. But damn, man. Mm-mm-mm.
That a lot of us have seen at this point, and possibly even some jurors too.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because legitimately, you know, this goes, as we've been talking about, to the bribery allegation, one of the underlying crimes of racketeering. And clearly the issue of him, you know, not being essentially bought off and not being cooperative with law enforcement and not reporting it, you could see why he needs some sort of protection. Real quick, I know you have to jump back, but in 1 minute, 2 minutes, what was the cross-examination about?
Yeah, the cross-examination went pretty quick. So we saw an exhibit photo of the NDA again, but exclusions from the NDA, where it said a disclosure of confidential information in response to valid order by a court or other government body, or B, as otherwise required by law, will not be breach of this agreement or a waiver of confidentiality for other purposes. Then we saw the non-disparagement portion of that NDA, and that was a non-disparagement against Combs or Combs parties. And then the final question from Brian Steele, who did the cross-examination, was whether or not Eddie Garcia went to law enforcement with this information. And then, spoiler alert for the redirects, he was kind of asked that same question. He said he did report it to law enforcement. It just wasn't police, it wasn't LAPD. Instead, it was federal agents when he had first talked about this incident and everything that came afterwards, too.
All right. Very interesting stuff. Elizabeth Milner, as always, great reporting. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I know you got to get a good seat. Who knows what's going to happen next in that courtroom. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks,
all right.
Cassie.
So let me get now
Lord.
to this. We have a question from Legs7K for all three of my guests. Afie, I'll start with you. But it says, hey, Jesse, how does Rich, Afie, and Candace see the next 3 weeks going with this trial, or what would they like to see come into play next? Afie, I start with you.
Great question.
I don't know if we can hear you, Afie. I don't know if you're muted or we got to work. Afie. Okay, I'll tell you what. As we work on Afie, let me go to Candace. Candace, I'll start with you.
So what I want to see is receipts. I want to see digital trails, which is what we are getting to, right? With the money, who oversaw the transactions, so that we could see the connection of all of this happening. Because a lot of this happened with cash transactions. So I want to see that. I also need to look at this whole RICO conspiracy. Who are the other people? I want to hear from security guards. I have to hear from those people who are protecting Combs, because Combs wasn't driving himself around. Combs wasn't, going out and getting candles. He was getting other people to get this. All of those people who we haven't heard from, who were protecting him, those are the people who are going to be key. And I think that we will definitely hear from them, and I think that we need to.
Rich?
Yeah, I sort of agree with that. I think we need to see the bona fides of the RICO claim here. I think we need to see what exactly the enterprise it is. There are conspiracy allegations here. We need to see somewhat of an agreement to commit criminal predicate acts and a pattern of racketeering activity. That's what RICO is.
He's saying what I was saying. And I was talking about, like, I don't know if the jury is kind of looking like, okay, we know about the domestic stuff. We know, but we need more of the stuff he's actually being, charged with. That's what I was saying. And listening to them say it makes sense, because it has to turn. It has to, because Diddy, his team has already, it's like they're like, well, he ain't being charged for this, so we gonna admit to it. Like, yeah, he was violent, he did this, he did that, but that's not what he's on trial for. Even though, again, I keep saying it, but they have set a great foundation. But it's like, we're in week 4. It's starting to go pretty fast. Unless they about to come in and lay the hammer.
it is a pattern of racketeering activity, and I do think we need to, I totally agree with Candace, I think we need to follow the money, we need to connect it to the accounts, and we need to put the whole enterprise together so that we can make this RICO claim stick.
So I'm going to get Afie's answer to this later on. I know we're working on some technical issues with her, but Candace, I'll throw another question to you. I was just talking about Eddie Garcia's testimony. This is a question from RSS. Are there any penalties for Eddie initially lying to the police about the Intercontinental Hotel video?
He got immunity.
Well, not now. Now that he has immunity, that's off the table. I mean, if he lies on the stand or was lying today, that's one thing, because if you perjure yourself, that's not protected. But he came in yesterday, he signed what he needed to do in order to be protected for today. And because it was a subpoena, he said he didn't want to be here, obviously, but he came full throttle, but he's safe so far.
Candace, let me throw another question to you. This is from Rel. Can you bribe someone who's not a law enforcement officer?
Well, sure. Sure, you can bribe someone that's not a law. You can really bribe anyone, especially if the goal is to suppress evidence, if the goal is to obstruct justice, if the goal is to hide something illegal that you were trying to do, and that's what the financial transaction was for, that in the name of the law would be illegal, certainly that bribery would stick like anybody else.
So again, we're taking your questions in right now. We're also waiting for court to start. We will give you real-time updates and a real-time breakdown for the next hour or so because we don't need to miss any moment of this trial. Rich, I'll go to you. We got a question from Fragility G4. If Diddy is acquitted, does double jeopardy apply only to federal charges, or can a state press similar charges?
So a state could press theoretically different charges. You don't usually see a state prosecuting RICO charges anyway, since that's a federal statute. But remember, there are issues because a lot of the things we're talking about are a long time ago and out of the statute of limitations. So I don't really know. I'd have to sort all through it to see if a state could still make some hay here if he's acquitted.
And the argument against the prosecution is because there are statute of limitations issues, they have taken these allegations, and again, this is the argument for the defense or people in Sean Combs' camp, they've manufactured it, they've transformed it into a complicated federal case. There are those, even though we're talking about it, who say, I still don't see racketeering, I still don't see it feels like a reach, I don't think they've reached those elements, but this is why you can bring similar conduct that may have had an overlap with state charges, right? I mean, the 2016 attack, theoretically, he could have been charged at the state level for that, but it was too old. Obviously, now we know there's issues of where the video was. But at the same time, it could be an element. It could be evidence of racketeering or evidence of trafficking. So you see that overlap there. Okay. Candace, we've got a question from Christina Lester. Why is arson such a specific predicate of RICO? If he'd just taken a baseball bat or golf club to Kid Cudi's car, would it not qualify for RICO?
Well, listen, there are 35 predicate crimes that you need for RICO. It has to be on that list. This is what the law was determined to be in 1970, albeit for mafia. But it happens to be on that list, and that's why arson is specific. It is a very serious crime, right? It's not a misdemeanor on any level. So because it's so serious and because it was involved with so many people in terms of when you look at it at a mafia level, it made the list. It just has to be one of these things on the list. And that's why it's important. It has to be on that list.
I've got a question here, Rich, from Lisa. This is a great question. KK, so Christina Coram. This is Sean Combs.
Yeah.
Former chief of staff, right? The head of the personal assistants, I would say. This is somebody who I actually dedicated another sidebar to yesterday about her role and how much she's been mentioned. KK has now been implicated at the hotel trying to get the tape and calling the security guard. Is she part of RICO and will have to get immunity? So will she testify?
I don't know if she'll testify. That's an interesting question. I don't know if they've offered her immunity to testify. Or theoretically, if she hasn't been offered immunity, she might plead the fifth instead of testifying because she would be implicating herself. So I don't actually know what's going to happen, but she's very clearly part of what the prosecutors are painting to be a criminal enterprise. She's the chief of staff. She is, in theory, carrying out his bidding. She's the person who goes out to find this videotape so that he can retrieve it, because they know there is very bad evidence out there.
That was good. Very informative. Like I, sorry. Like I said, we're waiting for some of, like I said, a lot of the stuff that he's being accused of to come to light. But I think we're slowly getting there, and maybe it's gonna be what do you call it, like a slow burn, but then out of nowhere, that KK chick though, if she end up getting immunity, boy, she might start talking. We'll see. We will see. Because I feel like it's the people that have been extremely close to him that like know a lot. But we'll see, man. Again, this was very, very informative. Shout out to Elizabeth again, because I'm trying to play catch up. I'm trying to get to this stuff as fast as possible. It'd be so much that comes out, man. Like, just have to wait and see. But definitely the KK chick can be very damaging for Diddy. Very damaging. Because I feel like the fact that the guy brought her name up, I know she's like, oh no. Oh no. I feel like everybody who knew about the Cassie situation and that the tape exists and what they did to get the tape, like some type of consequences. But, the guy was granted immunity, so we'll see. We'll see. Because like they said, whenever someone wants immunity, it's like, uh-oh, what are you about to say? Hey, appreciate y'all coming over and watching, man. Peace out.